Picture this. You are 30,000 feet in the air, the cabin lights are dim, almost everyone around you looks half asleep, and you close your eyes hoping for even one real hour of rest. But nothing happens. Your neck aches, your legs feel swollen, your mind will not slow down, and by the time you land, you feel like you never slept at all. Here is the part flight attendants rarely say out loud. Most passengers are doing almost everything wrong before they even try to sleep. Not because they are careless, but because nobody ever showed them the small habits that actually work inside a real airplane cabin. And in the next few minutes, you are about to hear 15 sleep tricks flight attendants actually use themselves, the small habits that quietly separate a wasted flight from a truly restful one. Before we go further, if you are someone who flies often, or you are getting ready for a long trip in 2026, take a moment and follow this channel, Fly Smart. After 70 shares practical travel habits like this every week, and by the end of this list, you will probably look at your own in-flight sleep routine completely differently. So stay with me, because rule number 15 is more common than most travelers realize. Rule number 15, dressing for the airport, not the cabin temperature. Most people get dressed based on how warm the terminal feels. A light shirt, thin pants, maybe a jacket tied around the waist, and that decision feels harmless at the moment. The problem starts once you are in the air, because cabin temperature is controlled by the crew, not by you, and on most flights it runs cooler than passengers expect, especially several hours in. Flight attendants know this better than anyone, and the ones who actually sleep well on their own flights dress in layers from the very start, not after they already feel cold. A thin base layer, a sweater, and something that can be added or removed in seconds, that combination lets your body settle into a stable temperature instead of shivering awake every 20 minutes. So before you board, stop dressing for the gate, start dressing for the cabin, because comfort at takeoff means very little once the air conditioning kicks in for the next 6 hours. Think about it this way. The terminal is warm because it is full of people and bodies moving in every direction, but the cabin is a sealed, climate-controlled space designed for efficiency, not for your personal comfort, and once that door closes, the temperature you feel is entirely out of your hands. A pair of socks tucked into your bag costs nothing and takes no extra space, yet it solves one of the most common complaints passengers mention after waking up from a short nap: cold feet that quietly kept pulling them out of deep sleep the entire flight. Rule number 14, staying hydrated without overdoing caffeine or alcohol. Cabin air is dry, much drier than most people assume, and that dryness pulls moisture out of your body faster than usual, which quietly disrupts sleep even when you feel fine. The common mistake is reaching for coffee to stay alert during boarding, or a drink to relax before a long flight, and both choices work directly against you. Caffeine keeps your nervous system alert long after you want it to switch off, and alcohol might make you drowsy at first, but it fragments sleep and dehydrates you even further, so you wake up more tired than when you left the ground. What actually works is simple water, sipped steadily, rather than all at once, starting before boarding and continuing through the flight. It sounds too basic to matter, but consistent hydration is one of the quiet habits crew members repeat on almost every long-haul flight because it keeps your body calm enough to actually fall asleep instead of just feeling exhausted. Rule number 13, eating a light meal before trying to sleep. This one surprises people. because the instinct on a long flight is either to eat everything offered or to skip food entirely and just wait until landing. Both extremes cause problems. A heavy meal forces your digestive system to work hard right when your body should be slowing down, and that internal activity makes deep sleep almost impossible, while an empty stomach can leave you restless and uncomfortable in a different way. The habit experienced flyers and crew members lean on is a small, light meal a couple of hours before they plan to sleep, something easy to digest, nothing greasy, nothing overly rich. That timing matters as much as the food itself, because eating right before closing your eyes almost guarantees a lighter, more interrupted rest. Get the timing right, and your body has one less thing working against it once you are ready to drift off. Rule number 12, ignoring your legs and circulation for hours. Sitting still for a long stretch does something most passengers never think about. Blood flow slows in the legs, and that slowdown does not just cause stiffness, it actually keeps your nervous system more alert than it should be, making real rest harder to reach. People assume sitting quietly is restful on its own, but staying frozen in one position for hours sends a low-level signal to your body that something is off, and that signal interferes with deep sleep. Flight attendants deal with this constantly, and the ones who manage to sleep on layovers rarely stay completely still. They shift position often, flex their feet, and change how their legs are angled every so often, even while sitting. It is a small adjustment, but ignoring your circulation for an entire flight is one of the fastest ways to end up awake, uncomfortable, and wondering why you cannot relax even though you are exhausted. Think about how often you naturally shift position at home without even noticing, rolling over, adjusting a pillow, stretching a leg out from under a blanket. All of that happens automatically because your body is constantly correcting itself throughout the night. On a plane, that instinct gets suppressed because the seat is narrow and the space is tight, so it becomes something you have to do on purpose instead of something your body handles for you. And travelers who remember that tend to land feeling far less stiff than everyone around them. Rule number 11, stretching your ankles and calves every hour before sleeping. This connects directly to circulation, but it deserves its own moment, because most passengers only think about stretching if their legs already feel numb, and by then the discomfort has already built up enough to keep them awake. The better approach, the one flight attendants quietly rely on during long shifts, is timing it before discomfort starts, not after. Rotating the ankles, gently flexing the calves, pointing and releasing the toes, done for even a minute every hour, keeps blood moving steadily instead of pooling in one place. It feels like a small, almost unnecessary habit until you notice how much easier it becomes to actually fall asleep afterward, because your body is not fighting stiffness in the background the entire time you are trying to rest. Rule number 10, wearing loose, comfortable clothing to improve circulation. This one connects closely to the last two, but it is often the root cause travelers overlook completely. Tight waistbands, snug jeans, restrictive socks, none of these seem like a big deal while you are walking through the terminal. But the moment you sit still for hours, that tightness starts working against your circulation and against your comfort at the same time. Flight attendants who fly long routes regularly tend to choose soft, loose-fitting clothing almost without exception, not for style, but because restriction anywhere on the body makes deep sleep noticeably harder to reach. If you want your body to relax fully, Give it room to actually do that, because fighting against your own clothing for 6 hours is not a battle worth winning. Rule number 9. Timing your sleep around your destination's time zone. This is where a lot of travelers accidentally sabotage themselves before the flight even takes off. Falling asleep the moment you sit down feels satisfying in the short term, but if that nap does not match your destination's schedule, you can land wide awake at exactly the wrong hour and spend your first day fighting exhaustion instead of enjoying it. Crew members who fly internationally on a regular basis plan their rest around where the plane is landing, not where it took off from, adjusting when they close their eyes and when they force themselves to stay awake, based on the time zone waiting for them. It takes a bit more discipline than simply sleeping whenever you feel tired, but it is the difference between adjusting smoothly and spending 3 days completely off schedule. A simple habit that helps here is checking the destination's local time as soon as you board, setting your watch or your phone to that time immediately, and treating the flight as though you already live on that schedule, rather than the one you left behind at home. It sounds like a small mental shift, but it changes how you approach every decision on board, from when you eat to when you finally close your eyes. And that single shift often matters more than anything else on this list combined. Rule number 8. Sleeping with your seatbelt visible over the blanket. This sounds like a small detail, almost too minor to matter, but it solves a very real and very common problem: being woken up in the middle of deep sleep. During turbulence, the seatbelt sign can turn on at any point, and if a flight attendant cannot see whether your seatbelt is fastened, they have to wake you to check every single time. Experienced travelers and crew members resting during their own breaks keep the belt fastened on the outside of the blanket, clearly visible, instead of underneath where it disappears from view. It seems like a tiny adjustment, but it can be the difference between one uninterrupted stretch of sleep and being startled awake 3 or 4 times over the course of a long flight. Rule number 7. Sleeping without blocking light and noise. Cabin lighting rarely stays consistent. Meal service, cabin crew walking the aisle, screens glowing from nearby seats, and even brief moments of sunlight through a shade someone forgot to close, all of it interrupts sleep more than passengers realize. The same goes for sound. Engine noise blends into a low hum most people adjust to, but sudden noise. A crying child, a cart rolling past, conversation nearby breaks sleep instantly and repeatedly. Flight attendants who manage to rest during layovers or long breaks almost never skip this step. An eye mask that actually blocks light completely, and either earplugs or noise-canceling headphones, used together rather than just one or the other. Skipping this step is one of the most common reasons people feel like they barely slept, even after closing their eyes for hours. And there is a detail most people never think about. The eye mask matters more than the earplugs, because light exposure signals your brain to stay alert, even when your eyes are technically closed. And even a thin strip of light sneaking in from the side of a cheap mask is enough to keep your body from settling into deeper stages of sleep. Choosing a mask that curves properly around the nose and sits flush against the skin makes a bigger difference than most travelers expect. And it costs almost nothing compared to how much rest it protects. Rule number 6. Keeping essential sleep gear within easy reach, not in the overhead bin. This mistake happens constantly, and it is almost always avoidable. Passengers pack their eye mask, their earplugs, their neck support, and their layers. And then place all of it in the overhead bin, thinking they will grab it once they are ready to sleep. But once the seatbelt sign is on, or the aisle is blocked by a service cart, that gear becomes completely out of reach at exactly the moment you need it most. Crew members know this pattern well because passengers ask them for help retrieving items mid-flight far more often than you would expect. The habit that actually works is simple. Keep your sleep essentials in the seat pocket in front of you, or in a small bag under the seat ahead. So when your body finally feels ready to rest, nothing stands between you and actually doing it. Rule number 5, choosing the window seat for better head support. This is not about the view, and it has very little to do with personal preference. A window seat gives you a solid surface to lean against, the cabin wall itself, something an aisle seat simply cannot offer. Without that support, your head tends to drift and bob throughout the flight, waking you up repeatedly, even during lighter stages of sleep. Flight attendants who choose their own seating on positioning flights or personal travel lean toward the window almost every time. For exactly this reason, because a stable surface to rest against changes the entire experience of trying to sleep upright. Combined with a small travel pillow or a folded piece of clothing between your head and the wall, this single seat choice can be the difference between constant micro wake-ups and a genuinely restful stretch of sleep. Rule number 4, using a folded hoodie or jacket as extra neck support. Not everyone travels with a proper travel pillow, and even those who do sometimes find it is not quite enough on its own. The habit many flight attendants rely on instead is remarkably simple. A hoodie or a soft jacket, folded and tucked against the side of the neck, adds just enough support to stop the head from dropping forward or sideways during sleep. It costs nothing extra. It takes no additional packing, and it solves one of the most common physical complaints after a long flight, waking up with a stiff, sore neck. Pairing this with a window seat multiplies the effect, giving your head 2 points of support instead of 1, which makes a noticeably longer stretch of uninterrupted sleep possible. What makes this trick so overlooked is how ordinary it feels. There is no product to buy, no gadget to research, just something you likely already packed for the trip anyway, repurposed for a completely different job the moment you are ready to rest. And once you try it once, it becomes second nature on every future flight. Rule number 3, reclining too far instead of supporting your neck. This is where a lot of well-meaning travelers actually make things worse. Reclining feels like the obvious solution to airplane discomfort. The more you lean back, the more comfortable it should feel, at least in theory. In practice, reclining too far without proper neck support does the opposite. It leaves the head completely unsupported, causing it to fall forward or to the side the moment you actually fall asleep, which wakes you up over and over throughout the flight. The habit flight attendants actually use is a moderate recline, paired with real support at the neck, rather than relying on the seat angle alone to solve the problem. Comfort during sleep comes from support, not just from the angle of the seat, and understanding that difference changes how effective your entire setup becomes. Rule number 2, creating a sleep cocoon with a hoodie, blanket, and eye mask. Individually, each of these items helps a little. Together, they create something far more effective, a controlled, private environment that blocks out most of the chaos happening around you. The hood pulled up limits peripheral light and muffles some noise. The blanket regulates temperature so your body is not distracted by cold air. And the eye mask removes visual interruption almost entirely. Flight attendants who need to sleep quickly during short layovers rely on this exact combination because it works fast and it works consistently, turning even a cramped economy seat into something closer to a private, low stimulation space. The goal is not luxury. It is removing as many interruptions as possible at the same time, instead of dealing with them one at a time as they happen. And finally, rule number 1, flipping your neck pillow backward to support your chin. This is the trick almost no passenger knows, and it is the one flight attendants mention most often when someone finally asks them directly. Most people wear a neck pillow with the opening facing forward, which supports the sides and back of the neck, but does nothing for the head as it drops forward, which is exactly how it tends to fall during sleep. Flip the pillow around so the opening faces the back of your neck instead, and now the raised sides of the pillow sit directly under your chin, gently holding your head upright instead of letting it fall. It looks slightly unusual, and it takes a moment to get used to. But once you feel the difference, it becomes obvious why crew members quietly rely on this exact adjustment during their own rest periods, because it solves the one problem almost no travel pillow is designed to fix on its own. Most manufacturers design these pillows around the assumption that people fall asleep leaning to one side, so the padding is built to catch a drooping head from the left or the right, but in reality, the far more common movement is the chin dropping straight down toward the chest, which is precisely the motion the standard forward-facing design does nothing to stop. By simply turning the same pillow around, you are not buying anything new or changing your setup in any complicated way. You are just using an object you already own in the way it should have been designed from the start, and that single reversal is often the one adjustment that finally makes in-flight sleep feel realistic instead of frustrating. 15 habits, and none of them require expensive gear or a completely different way of traveling. Dress for the cabin, not the gate. Stay hydrated instead of relying on caffeine or alcohol. Eat light before you try to sleep. Move your legs and stretch before stiffness sets in. Wear clothing that lets your body relax instead of fighting it. Sleep according to your destination's clock, not just your own tiredness. Keep your seatbelt visible so no one has to wake you. Block out light and sound completely, together, not separately. Keep your sleep essentials within reach, not buried above your head. Choose the window seat when you can, and support your neck instead of just reclining further. Build a small cocoon around yourself instead of relying on any single item to do all the work. And finally, flip that neck pillow around, because that one small change solves the problem most travelers never even realize they have. None of these tricks are complicated, and none of them are secret in the sense that they are hidden. They are simply habits most passengers never get shown, and flight attendants use them so naturally that they rarely think to explain them out loud. If this changed how you plan to prepare for your next flight, that is exactly the kind of practical difference Fly Smart After 70 is here for, so stay close, keep learning these small adjustments, and the next long flight you take might finally feel like actual rest, instead of just time spent waiting to land.